Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to take a short walkthrough on how you apply for round two of the ARP Build, Learn, Grow Stabilization Grants. Really excited to be bringing you a second round of opportunities. You won't see a lot of changes from round one, but certainly if you have questions, feel free to reach out to the Spark Help Desk for support as they are there to help you. So as with last time, you're going to start here on the iLead page and log in. If you have any difficulties understanding what your login is, you don't know that, maybe you're not a program administrator, again, you can reach out to the Spark Help Desk and they can support you in making sure that you get logged into this page. Once you log in, you're then going to see this window where you're going to see the ability to find the Build, Learn, Grow Stabilization Grant. You're going to see that here in this middle box, and you're going to click the Launch Stabilization Grant portal. Once you launch, then you're going to come to this page, and mine looks just a little bit different than yours might because don't get the pleasure of being one of you to sign in the exact same way. But when you come here, you're going to click on your stabilization grant. And first, we're going to run through the eligibility requirements. And again, these are really important, so please be sure that you read them. But you must be licensed, regulated, or a registered child care program by March 11th, 2021 if you are not participating in the CCDF program, or you need to be licensed by January 14th of 2022 if you are active in the CCDF program. So those are a little bit different than the last time as that eligibility date has lengthened for programs who do accept subsidies. So please make sure that you note that. If you have any questions about your licensure date, you are welcome to reach out to your licensing consultant as they can help look that up for you. You do have to meet applicable state and local health and safety requirements at the time of the application, including completion of comprehensive background checks for your staff. That's really important. Again, if you have questions about that, you can log in as your program administrator to your iLead portal and get information about your staff and their status of background checks. You do have to be open and currently serving children on the date that you apply. Temporary closures of those 14 or 10-day periods, those don't count. You are still open and operating. We know that some of you are unfortunately having to do that quite a bit right now, so that does not prevent you from applying, so please feel free to do so. You do have to be in good standing with our regulations for licensed and registered care. So to be in good standing for completion of this grant, you must be compliant with your regulations. You cannot be in an active repayment process or the subject of an active investigation or enforcement. Again, if you have any questions about whether or not you fall into that category, your licensing consultant will be able to answer that for you. You also cannot be a current Head Start or Early Head Start recipient. Child care partnerships can apply for portions of their enrollment that's not supported by your federal Head Start or Early Head Start partnership funding. And again, if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to our office as we can help you. So applications can be submitted beginning 119 and will go all the way through April 14th. Your grant amounts are calculated based on each site, your program type, average attendance, staffing cost, quality level, and geography. And grant awards may vary by site and because they're intended to cover the cost of those particular program expenses. For this round, we are covering 5 months of the operating expenses, and grant awards for round two are going to be capped at $850,000 per site. So the last time, if you were a large center or another large, public school or program that got the $500,000 cap, you are eligible to apply again this round. And your cap cannot exceed $850,000. The reason for the increase is the last time we were covering 3 months of operating expenses, and this time we are covering 5 months. Allowable expenses. So you can use the funding for any expenses that occurred from January 31st, 2020 through September 30th of 2023. You can view the allowable expense guide by clicking on this button, and that'll give you more information. A completed list of program agreements for the Build, Learn, Grow Stabilization Grant can be found by clicking here. And again, it's really important that you read all of that so that you understand what you're agreeing to. So as you see here, as you are logging in, you're seeing this yellow box that's a little bit different than the last time. And this is because you were awarded a stabilization grant during round one. So before being able to apply for the second round, you must submit a report on your current grant expenditures. And so you're going to click Go to Reporting. And once you do that, you're going to see any grants that you've received previously. You're going to click on the stabilization grant expense report, and then this is going to populate for you. So it's going to tell you what funds you were awarded previously, funds reported for this round. So far, this is going to say 0 because you haven't reported anything yet, and the remaining funds you have to spend. So if you have not spent any of the funds yet, you're going to have zeros in all of these categories. So for those of you who maybe waited until the end of round one to apply, and you're now beginning in round two, this might be a 0, and that's okay. Just know that we are going to be asking for future reporting. But if you receive the grant and you have already spent funding, then we're going to ask you to please indicate that in these boxes. So let's say in personnel cost, you have spent $20,000. You're just going to enter that there, and you're going to see that it starts to do the math for you up above, indicating that you still have $4,655 to report in expenses. And so let's say that you did that here under mental health supports. And then you'll see you have a 0 there underneath saying that you've reported everything you've spent to date and that you have spent everything in your round one awards. Down here, we're going to ask you as a childcare home provider if you employ staff in addition to you, the program owner. If you say no, then you're going to go on. If you say yes, we're going to ask you a few additional questions. So below, if you clicked yes, you're going to enter the average hourly staff wage prior to round one of the stabilization grant. And again, keep in mind, this is just for people that work for you. If you are the childcare home owner and operator, you're not including information about yourself in these boxes. And then the second piece is we're going to ask you what their average hourly wage was after the stabilization grant round one. So for purposes of today, we're just going to enter in $15 is what it was before. And right now you are paying $17. We're also going to ask you if your program permanently increased staff wages after receiving your round one stabilization grant award. A one-time or short-term bonus would not be considered a permanent wage increase. And so again, if you just gave a bonus, that's great. We certainly think that that's a good way to spend the funding, but for this question, you're going to answer no. If you're a child care center or a licensed public school, an exempt program, a registered ministry, you're going to automatically see these questions without answering the yes or no up here under does your program employ staff? Because we know that you do employ staff. And so we're going to ask you these questions automatically. However, if you're a home provider, you'd need to tell us if you employ staff or not in order for us to understand whether or not this question is applicable to you. So here you're going to click complete expense report, which is great. And so it tells you all of these things here. If for some reason you have made an error, you'll see this button at the top that says edit report, and you can click that and go back and make any kind of corrections that you needed. So now that you've completed this, you'll see it says thank you for completing. You may now apply for round two, and you're simply going to click go to the stabilization application. We're going to look at your eligibility requirements just so we make sure everyone's on the same page. And then we're going to click Start Application. Okay, so you're going to see in here information about your program, the same that you did last time. Again, if there are any discrepancies here, please let your licensing staff know so that they can make those corrections in anything around address, etc. Under program details, we're going to ask if you own your facility or pay a lease or a mortgage in your facility. And if you say yes, this time we'd like you to tell us how much money that is. We need to know your monthly lease or mortgage for your program. And the reason that we want to know this is that this will really help us better the cost model for future things that we do here, like rate setting for the CCDF program. So if you can please just enter that amount there. And then do you pay employees benefits such as medical insurance, dental, vision, or retirement? If you click yes, that's great. We need to know that. And do you participate in the Child Adult Food Care Program, CACFP? The reason that we need to understand this is because this now will influence the cost model. So if you click no, that's great. If you click yes, that's great too. We just need to know which part applies to you. So for the demo, we're going to put no. We are going to ask again the race, ethnicity, and gender, and whether or not we can send you text updates. And again, we'd ask that you fill those out, but you are not required to fill those out. So here you're going to see that if you submitted a grade in round one, your classroom is going to be reflected below anything that you entered there. We are asking that you open that up, review the classroom so that you can verify those details are still accurate. And if they're not, you can add or delete. If you're a new applicant, then you would need to create a classroom for each class. If this is a family childcare home or a setting without defined classrooms, you're just going to create one class for all children and staff. Um, Additionally, classrooms with separate morning and afternoon enrollments, so a preschool, pre-K with separate morning and afternoon, should only be counted as one classroom. So if this is what you did here before, you're going to open this up so that you can take a look at it and click edit. And you want to make sure that all of these things are still correct, that all of the information you provided us in round one is still here. And so you had 7 children attending, and that toddler age group is what you told us the last time. If that's still the case, that's great. If it's not, that's okay too. You can just let us know that. So we're going to click save and say that all of that is exactly the same. So then you would click next. And here's where it's going to give you what we think your total estimated monthly expenses are. And if they fall within this range, then you would say yes. And if they don't, you're going to say no, and that's okay. You can tell us then how many total teaching staff do you have? And so we're going to say you have 2. And do you have any support staff? So people who do other activities for you that help with your business. And here we're going to say no. And what's the average hourly wage? And so here, let's say 17, because I believe that's what we put in our expense report. If we have benefits, your benefits percentage here. Um, and so let's say it's 3%. And your total revenue. Now, this question's a little bit different because we're demoing for you today a childcare home operator. This question is really relevant for them, but you will not see that if you're a center or a ministry or an exempt program. And so your total revenue here, we're going to put 100,000. And then below, we're going to ask you to please upload information so that we can understand how all of these numbers match and that we can verify them. And so you would click choose file, and then select the file from your computer and upload that, and then hit save expenses. And so here you're going to see a change then, and that looks more accurate for me. And so I'm going to say yes, that makes sense. Now, if you have banking information on file, which again, if you received a payment in round one, you likely have banking information that's still accurate and we can still use that. So we'll say yes. If we say no, then we've provided to you the forms that you need to fill out and reply back to our OEC OSL provider inquiry box. It's very important, a couple of things. One is the dates on these forms have to be current. So you cannot send in an old W-9 with an old date. And we do need everything filled out with the signature. Otherwise, we'll have to communicate back to you to say these we can't use and we'll need new ones. So under the allowable expenses, we're asking you to tell us what you anticipate using these funds for. So personnel cost, if you have facilities, and let's say health and safety. And again, you can click multiple, you can click all of them, whatever it is that you intend to use the funding for. And so then we're getting into your attestation. So it's important to remember that if you take these funds, you do have to comply with all of these things. So one is that you'll comply with anything outlined in an executive order by the governor, that you'll do your best to follow the guidance from our office as it relates to COVID related activities, and to the greatest extent possible, implement policies in line with the CDC. So you do have to check that you've read that and you understand that. We are also asking that you invest at least 25% of the funds towards increasing staff wages or benefits. You may not use the awarded funds to supplant or replace existing costs, but rather invest in new wages and benefit enhancements. So again, you need to be sure that you're thinking through that, and if you need help, the folks at Spark can help you do that. You agree that you will provide financial relief or support for enrolled families, or at least a subset of them, through efforts including but not limited to tuition assistance funds, sliding fee scales. You can participate in the Build, Learn, Grow Scholarship Fund, write off tuition debt, etc. But you agree that you will do that for at least a portion of the families that you support, if not all of them. You're agreeing that your funds will be spent in accordance with the defined allowable expenses. And again, there's an allowable expenses guide and some support for you on the website. That you'll follow all the required tracking and reporting, including maintaining financial documentation for purposes of audits. So understand that we will be auditing programs and you will have to have receipts to show what your expenditures went towards. You agree that if you're assigned any technical assistance, you will participate in that. That you won't take action to reduce existing staff pay or benefits or to furlough or lay off existing employees. That you will not utilize these funds to pay outstanding taxes. And that your program will not utilize the funds to pay for expenses that are already covered by other federal, state, or local relief funds or grants. And that you will produce the appropriate detailed documentation that is required by the federal or state agencies for this grant, and failure to do so will require you to pay those funds back in full. You also agree that you will return unspent funds in the case of a program closure. So once you've done that, you're going to click Next. And then this is going to show you information here just to make sure that everything you've entered in is correct. So you can see your classroom there, you can see your expenses, all of those things you can see. So you do need to answer this question that you are authorized to submit this grant on behalf of your program. And then you're going to see this one that is new, that you acknowledge that if your program closes after you've been awarded the stabilization grant, that you're responsible to pay back all unspent funds within 5 business days of the closure and provide documentation that verifies any funds spent prior to that closure. This is very important. You need to understand that if you choose to close, you are going to have to show us those expenditures if you've made any, and then repay all of those funds in a very quick manner. Once you've agreed to both of those things, you're going to hit submit your grant application, and you're going to see what your total award is here at the top, reflecting those 5 months of operating expenses, all of this information down here that you've entered. And so you can print this page here at the top so that you can see all of that. And that way, if you need anything for your records, you'll have that here. And that's it. You'll then be notified via email from our office once your application is processed and approved and submitted for payment. Again, we thank you so much for your time and effort in getting all of these funds to you. We know that it is a lot for you to have to do, and hoping that we make it as easy as possible. Again, if you need support, please feel free to reach out to our office or the Spark Help Desk, as they are there to help you. Thank you so much.